Hey, what's going on there, guys? Nick here from Absolute MTG, and welcome back to another installment of the MTG stock market, where we're tracking prices and trends for various formats across Magic the Gathering and speculating for some stuff. So to start off this episode, let's talk about our cards that are trending upwards. So for our five for this week, we have Whisperwood Elemental, Summoner's Pact, Doran the Siege Tower, Pelucranos, World Eater, and Vengevine. So sitting in our number one slot here, we have Whisperwood Elemental at $9.75 with a 30% increase of $2.23. Now, this was something that I mentioned in the previous episode, like this card could be good, it could potentially see some standard play, it definitely has the potential for at least being a fun FNM card in Green Devotion, and little did I know, the next SCG event, which occurred a few days later, there were actually two decks in the top 8 that were playing this guy, and it seems that this guy actually found a pretty good house. So people are finally starting to catch on that Whisperwood Elemental is playable in Green Devotion, and the variants that are playing him right now are just like mono Green Devotion decks, and of course the red-green Devotion decks as well. In our number 2 slot, we have our Summoner's Pact at $9.52 with a 25% increase of $1.92. So, like we mentioned in one of our last episodes, Summoner's Pact is going up because of the Bloom Titan hype. Everybody is just gravitating towards that deck, which will force decks to start sideboarding or pre-sideboarding for them. But either way, Summoner's Pact is on the rise a little bit, and they are around like $10 now. So just something to keep in mind if you're trading for or you're trading away your Summoner's Pacts. They are at about $9.52 at the moment. Our number 3 slot here is pretty interesting. We have Doran the Siege Tower at $10.58 with a 17% increase of $1.50. So one of the factors in legendary cards now is that Tiny Leaders is a format, so people are picking up or are finding new cards that they want to be playing in this format, which is like a mini EDH. But with Doran, it's kind of interesting because this guy actually is playable in Modern, and there are some lists that are playing Doran right now. So I think the two big factors at the moment that are making Doran actually playable are the fact that he is starting to see some minimal Modern play, and also the fact that he does fit into the whole Tiny Leaders thing as well, which could be influencing more legendary creatures and legendary creature foils as well. So it's something to keep in mind, not only for Doran with its price, but also legendary creatures 3 CMC or less as well. Sitting at number 4, we have our Pelucranos World Eater at $6.99 with a 22% increase of $1.28. So much like Whisperwood Elemental, Pelucranos is very playable in Green Devotion. It's a very easy card to ramp into, and it also allows you to sync your mana whenever you're creating mana off of your Nykthos interactions and Voyaging Satyr untaps and whatnot. It gives you a sync to where you can just clear the board of your opponent's small creatures, get rid of any tokens that they could have, like Hordeling Outburst tokens or anything like that, and you can hit in for a whole lot of damage if your opponent has a clear board, or if you're able to take a creature or two out. And last but not least, sitting in our 5 slot here, we have Vengevine at $21.75 with a 5% increase of $1.04. So if somebody were to ask me prior to recording this video and prior to actually looking up the data on MTGGoldfish for pricing and whatnot, how much I thought a Vengevine would actually be, I'd probably guess somewhere around like $14. Vengevine isn't massively impactful in Modern. It's not seeing play in like a lot of tier 1 decks or anything like that. But the card's really cool. There's nothing that really resembles Vengevine as far as what its ability actually does. And much like Bloodghast, it definitely holds some sort of soft spot for like casual players and people that want to play like fun Modern decks for FNM, now that they've actually restructured the way that FNM formatting is actually done, and you can play Modern for it. But the point remains, like, Vengevine is a really cool dredge card. It definitely has cool interactions and strategies that you can actually build around it. The fact that it's $21, I don't really think speaks a whole lot as far as the card seeing more play and being more of a playable thing. However, I do want to note that the card is going up in price, so if you have some that you don't care for, now's probably the time to trade them away. The card isn't really breaking anything in the Modern format at the current time. However, all of that could change. There could be something that's printed in the future that just makes Vengevine really, really playable and dredge strategies really, really good. I don't think that for any foreseeable reason they are going to bring back Dread Return, which would just make Dredge really broken. However, I think alongside Golgari Grave Troll and cool cards like Life from the Loam and Bloodghast, this guy does see some potential for being playable, even if it's like for FNM or something like that. So now that we have all the cards that are going up in price out of the way, now it's time to talk about some cards that are actually going down. So for this, I have 5 cards that are going down in price. And they are Elspeth, Sun's Champion, Sarkhan, the Dragon Speaker, Soulflare, See the Unwritten, and Mantis Rider. So first and foremost, Elspeth, Sun's Champion. Elspeth's at $16.99 right now with a 6% drop. And one of the big reasons with Elspeth actually just going down in price, where she was originally at like $30 a few months ago, where I actually was trading a few of them away thinking, well, this card's really never going to retain that $30 value. I might as well just get rid of this now. I traded for some fetch lands, so I was pretty content with it at the time. But now with the Elspeth versus Kiora dual deck coming out, people are less inclined to actually start buying the pack Elspeths. And even more so, if people need like a single Elspeth, they might as well just buy one of those dual decks and get their copy and be able to play with it in whatever deck that they actually want. So Elspeth is on the decline for now, and don't expect that to change. She's probably going to keep on going down for the next few weeks here, and then might go up in price just based on what decks are actually seeing play at the time and how much people want to be playing a 6-mana Planeswalker. Sarkhan's a little bit more interesting because if you guys remember whenever Sarkhan was first released and whenever the pre-release prices were floating around, this guy settled at like $25, and since then he's just been dropping very rapidly. So now he's at about like $11 to $12. Now's a really good time to actually pick him up. If you plan on playing this guy for standard, now's a pretty good time to pick him up where he's only like $11 to $12. If you don't plan on playing him, don't really worry about it. There are certain decks that just want to be playing him. Decks like Red-White where you can transform, take away your actual aggro cards, and then side them out and then put in more mid-rangey type cards. Sarkhan's really good at that, and he provides for removal and a pseudo Stormbreath Dragon type attacker as well. However, don't expect this card to retain its value. It doesn't really see play, well, it actually doesn't see any play in Modern or Legacy or formats like that. So if you're trying to pick up Sarkhans for Standard, now's the time to do it. He's really, really cheap, and he's actually pretty easy to find right now. Soulflare is more of a speculation than anything else right now at this point. Soulflare is only $1. It dropped like 14%, which was only like a whole 16 cents. But at $1, Soulflare is just stupidly cheap, and this card really has the potential for being something broken or being a pseudo strategy in the next upcoming seasons here. At $1 a piece, I would probably buy like 2 or 3 playsets of these and even just sit on them, because this card has a very, very good potential of just being a $5 card and being something that people really want somewhere down the line where they're like, all right, well, cool, you can bin all of these things into your grave, and then you can just go and delve them away and have a really cool Soulflare. I mean, people are already playing things like Chromanicore, and they're just Satyr wayfinding their way to put stuff into their bin and then Soulflaring up through and just making a big, huge, ridiculously buffed up Soulflare that has all of these static abilities. So I think at $1 a piece, it's pretty safe to say that you can just invest like $8 or $12 into getting a bunch of Soulflares and just kind of sitting on them until it eventually sees some play, because the card's pretty much bound to see some play. See the Unwritten is a little bit less likely to see play, but at $1.80, it dropped 2%, which was like 4 cents, which doesn't even matter. But at $1.80, basically $2, See the Unwritten is another card that, again, like the Whisperwood Elemental that I mentioned before, has the potential for seeing play. It has specific things that you want to be reaching and attaining with how you're actually building your deck, what creatures you're actually putting out onto the board, and whether you get that Ferocious or not. But just kind of as a baseline, See the Unwritten is really sweet. It is playable in EDH. It's a 6 mana. Look at X amount of cards off the top of your library, put a dude onto the battlefield. That's sweet. But I think at $2, it's pretty reasonable to actually go and get some and then just kind of sit on them for a little while. But one thing that I was honestly really surprised about is the fact that Mantis Rider is at $1.46, which is basically like $1.50 a piece. So this was a card that honestly I really figured that this card would stay around like $4 for its foreseeable standard play. Even though the card actually does see a reasonable amount of play with Jeskai builds, and anybody that wants to get a little bit greedier with playing like red-white to just splash blue for Mantis Rider, Jeskai Charm, and like Treasure Cruise, if not maybe even just play the Ascendancy itself and just play like a tokens build. I'm really surprised that Mantis Rider is as cheap as it actually is. I think if there is any good time to actually pick them up to be able to play them through its actual standard play and for its actual lifetime in standard, now's really the time to pick them up because they are dirt cheap. And it's definitely another one of those cards that it's standard playable. It has the potential for being like double its actual price, even if it is at like $3. And it's pretty much just a injustice that it's this cheap. But in closing here, one thing that I wanted to talk about is the standard and the modern format as far as playable decks go and like the top of the tier stuff, as well as some stuff from modern that I think has the potential for being really good at the moment or is something that is just really well positioned. So as far as standard is concerned, I think that red-white aggro and close variants like Jeskai, Abzan mid-range, blue-black control and close variants like Esper Control, red-green Devotion and like mono-green Devotion, as well as the Sultai Whip or 4-color Whip or Abzan Whip, whatever you're doing with Whip and like jamming Siddices or Siege Rhinos or Tassigurs, whatever the case may be. I think all of those decks are really good right now. Outside of that, people are going to be looking for those cards. No matter what they were playing previously, all of these cards for those decks are going to be sought after, especially like the stuff for Red Green Devotion right now because it wasn't really as played or as heavily present in the meta before. The stuff for like Sultai Whip, your cards that already see play in there, like the Siddices. Siege Rhino is in its own new territory now after the Pro Tour because it's playable in Modern and people realize that. But I think the cards and the staples for those decks are definitely things that you want to be trading for. They're easy trade bait at the moment, and people are going to want them. As far as Modern is concerned, I think like the big hitters right now at the moment are like Abzan mid-range, Splinter Twin, Bloom Titan, Burn. Those are the things that are on everybody's radar. Those are things that people are sideboarding for. They're maybe even pre-sideboarding for as well. But I think as far as the modern format is concerned, I think two decks that are really well positioned right now at the moment are Green-White Hate Bears, just because it has such good disruption for like really greedy mana bases. It's really good against Bloom Titan just because you have those Ghost Quarters and you're able to like Arbiter lock them out of like searching and whatnot. Mind Sensor is really good up against like Transmute and whatnot as well. There are just very small things in that Hate Bears deck that just make it really awkward for Bloom Titan to be able to function as well as it does. So I think that's where like the Hate Bears deck lies for just disrupting really greedy mana bases, especially like for Bloom Titan where it's dependent on having specific lands and doing specific things. But honestly, right now at the moment, I think one deck that is really going to catch people off guard and something that if you're planning on going to like a modern event and you want something that people won't expect and won't like commit sideboard slots for, it would be Ad Nauseam. So Ad Nauseam combo is, I think, well off of everybody's radar, even more so than something like Breach Reanimator or something like that. People have the like the Graveyard Hate. They might have ways to actually be able to stop you from cheating things out, but I think Ad Nauseam combo is actually pretty well positioned and nobody is really paying attention to it at the moment, and it should be pretty easy to drop like an Angel's Grace and then just Ad Nauseam, draw your entire deck, and pretty much just kind of smash them then and there because they can't really do anything about it. I think that a lot of people don't even know how to sideboard properly against Ad Nauseam as well, as far as me playing the deck goes and even just watching people play post-board games against it. But if you're looking for something that is off the radar to actually play in Modern, Ad Nauseam is definitely one of those decks to be playing right now, as well as Green-White Hate Bears. But both of those decks are something that I would look for some of the cards in there, and I would probably try to attain them just because they do have the potential for being real Modern decks, even just on the fringe end where some people are playing it and it could do well at some events. But that will about do it for us for this installment of the MTG stock market. So if you guys enjoyed the video and want to see more, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button on the video and subscribe to the channel for more various Magic the Gathering content, including MTG stock market. And if you guys have any suggestions, comments, or constructive criticism, leave it down in the comments below, and I'll take it into consideration for future videos and topics and segments and whatnot we do with this actual series. So again, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, peace out.